as you're all logging in. Let's get rocking and a rolling. Wednesday, April the 26th. Thank you for joining. Um, so excited. I was blessedly woken, and I say this truthfully, blessedly woken up every couple hours yesterday or last night. Um, when my guides were really, really not loud, but insistent. Last night while I was sleeping. In fact, about 4 o'clock this morning, I said, okay, thank you for all these incredible downloads. And I'd like a couple hours of uninterrupted sleep. And so for those of you who have guides that are, that awaken you at night, you can ask them to just give you some time to sleep. Right, but you are the director of your guides, the director of your intuition. Um, your subconscious mind, um, your unconscious mind, those pieces, right, are we can follow intuition. And all of these are different components. I know sometimes for me, there was confusion in all the definitions. And so throughout the next little bit, I think I'll just kind of go back to some of the basics and maybe do some definitions as we have incredibly awesome new people joining. But today, I wanted to talk a little bit about a tactic. And I'm a little jealous because Emily's in a beautiful tank top, and I'm thinking it must be warm there as I'm in my hoodie and slippers still. This is the difference between living in Red Deer, Alberta, and where Emily lives. So I might just go hang out with Emily. That's right. So the tactic today is asking yourself, what is true? And you can even ask, what is truth? So truth being the capital T, right? And so we have voices in our head in a sense of we have at an unconscious, subconscious level, we are influenced, even if we're not aware of it, of our upbringing, of the important people that were in our life and still might be in our lives. And we are influenced by their values, influenced by their belief systems that were passed on from generation to generation. And so an incredible opportunity is for you, and I've kind of been hinting at it this last probably week or so, but was given more direct ways to ask you questions to ask of yourself. So your guides are fairly insistent, and I'm not sure if it's the collective or if it's just a few of you, but your guides are fairly insistent that you do a deep, deep dive into all of your values and all of your beliefs. And you ask yourself, does this still belong to me? Is this necessary to still belong to me? And this is in every area of your life. So not just business, right? And you can even find yourself maybe judging like certain circumstances or people over the next 24 to 48 hours. Pause, stop, and ask, does this belong to me? Like there's a reason there's judgment, and judgment is there actually, from this is my opinion, is to point out to you where you're holding a value and or a belief, and is that judgment benefiting you, right? And so because you can move into a place of discernment where you're making an observation, but there's no, I call it spiciness to it. Like there's no emotion to it. It's just like, oh, that apple is green and that apple is red. I'm not judging the green apple or the red apple. I'm discerning between the two colors, right? And so that's the first step, is to just really look at all of your values, all of your beliefs, and ask, Like, is this mine? What's the truth in this? And so the second piece of this is to actually look at your life and think about the problems that you're facing or in your life. And I say life and business. When I say life, I mean like all areas of your life. But the problem that you're facing, and it's a problem because you're trying to avoid something. So what are you trying to avoid? So that was kind of the second message that I received. What are you trying to avoid? Because the problem is never the problem. The problem is the meaning that we give the problem, right? So, and we often, as problem solvers, right, we go to solve the problem, which means we're trying to avoid the outcome of the problem. Can you be clear about what problem you're trying to avoid? And is it possible that you're trying to avoid the problem because A, you need to be right, or B, you don't want to experience being wrong? Because if it was just a thing, it was just like no attachment, right? Then there wouldn't be the avoidance. And so if you're either trying to be right or not being wrong, there is often a deep-seated pain, a core wound or core fear around why you're avoiding the problem, which is when you look at this together, right? The problem that you're trying to avoid, there's a deep-seated pain, there's some sort of core wound or core fear around it. And when you look at the beliefs that you have, right, the circumstances around everything, the beliefs that you have, this will be tied together, right? So the beliefs that you have, the judgments that you have, all of those pieces will be attached to why you're trying to avoid the problem. And so these beliefs that you have were developed from the age of 0 to up until the age of 7. And then after the age of 7, then you have the ability to kind of distinguish between what's right for you or wrong for you. But even think about in your life, you know, if you were told to do something as a child, with you know, and you didn't follow what your parents said, what was the outcome for you? Now, for most children, if you don't follow what your parents asked you to do, there is punishment, right? And so punishment might be something simple like go to your room, put your nose in the corner at school, a loss of something, you don't get desserts, you don't get the treat, you don't get to go out and play. I mean, right? So how this all ties together is you have a belief and paradigm of belief and values you're following. It may or may not belong to you. You're trying to avoid a problem. You're avoiding a problem because you need to be right or not be wrong. It's connected to a core wound and core fear. You're following a voice of authority, often at an unconscious level. Your voice of authority were the people that you grew up with, who gave you the beliefs and the values. If you didn't follow the beliefs and the values, or you didn't follow your rules around your house, you were punished. So you were following the authority of your parents. And it would be so cool if after you left home, at the age of whatever you left home, you could like shake that all off and move into the world and know how limitless and unlimited you are. And that's actually not what happens because you've been conditioned and programmed to follow the order or a punishment would ensue. So does it not make sense that when you're avoiding something, right, you're avoiding the problem, you need to be right or not be wrong, and you're following these unconscious beliefs and values, there's a part of you that's avoiding being punished by the authorities in your life, which were your parents or your bosses or your teachers. And so you're still following the authority as if you were 0 to 7 years old. I'm just going to pause there because someone's having a WTF moment. Isn't that crazy? So when you realize that the authority that you're following is not necessarily you, is not necessarily the divine in you. So you have an option then to take back your authority. Like today, you can be, I am the authority of my life. And even deeper than that, can you connect yourself to divine source energy? Now, use whatever word works for you. God, higher power, goddess, Allah, Buddha, you know the drill. So when we talk about following the authority, right, it's following the authority of the divine within us. Now, here's the tricky part. If you grew up with a religion, or even in a spirituality, with the thought that if you don't follow divine source energy, you will also be punished, you need to take your authority back from that as well, right? So like in my world, when I grew up as a Catholic, there was like hell to pay if you don't follow the systems, right? And the systems at that time in religion is man-made. There's certainly like truth, capital T, to follow. And so what I had to distinguish for myself, and it started when I joined Alateen, was that my God is not a punishing God, right? Mine is the one that lifts me up when I'm struggling the most. And so there might be another layer for you of authority to work through, right? And so by asking yourself, what are my values? What are the beliefs that I have? Where did those come from? Am I still following the authority? How much are you being influenced by your tribe, right? Could be this tribe now, could be your parents, your grandparents, it could be teachers, and other authorities that were in your life because we avoided being punished, right? A lot of people did. Or you might have been like Ranchelle, who was a bit of a rebel, who was like, there's not much that you can do with me. And I remember, like, I was probably 10 years old, and I remember being in so much like agony emotionally, that it was like there's cannot be anything more painful than this. So I just distinguishedly remember thinking, I really don't give a shit if I follow your rules or not, because there's nothing as painful as this life, right? And so I was a bit of a rebel. And it was funny because I didn't actually rebel in the sense of I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, like that wasn't right. I went to school, but I just remember being really clear about my family, like thinking these people are crazy and I'm not going to follow their rules because they make no sense to me. So I'm seen as the rebel in my family. I'm the black sheep, right, in my family. But making the decision at a very young age that it was easier to be the black sheep and not follow their rules than it was to follow their rules. But that had consequences as well. There's values and beliefs behind that as well, right? And so who is your authority, so that you have the opportunity to take back. So this is really about taking back your authority, right? And so part of what I realized in this exercise was that I was still really attached to what other people thought of me, and that other people's opinions were really, really important to me because I had a deep need to belong, because I didn't feel like I belonged in my family. A deep need to belong, even a deep need, although I at a conscious level, intellectual level, could say these people are crazy, right, and I'm not like them, I still wanted to belong. I still want to belong to the crazy family, right? And so if not to my crazy family, then who else can I belong to? And so it influenced me, right, to be in situations and stay in relationships much longer than what was probably healthy for me, because I really felt like I needed to belong to an outside group. I had this, like I said, this deep need to belong. And with that, then this avoidance of being talked about. Now think about it as I'm uncovering this, and this kind of came to me, I think about 3 years ago now. Right, this deep need to belong. I have a tribe. I can't be talked about. Now, this is where the values and the beliefs come in, because I didn't have the ability to distinguish between being talked about in a positive way or talked about in a negative way. So then I decide I'm going to, fulfill my mission and my purpose, and I want to, get out into the world, and I want to share my message. But I have this underlying unconscious belief that I can't be talked about. Can you see how that doesn't work together? Right? Don't talk about me, and I want to share my mission. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. So I had to go into and dive into, right, what the talk about was. Then I got to, I want to belong. And then what does belong to me, meaning to me? And what are the consequences of not belonging? And knowing full well that from a very prehistoric, way, that the consequence of not belonging truly is death. I mean, think about it, right? We're all living in caves, and you decide that I don't belong. What are you going to do? You're going to boot me out of the cave. And then I'm going to be alone, right? Facing the elements alone, hunting and gathering alone, right? There's isolation, which is why isolation is a punishment when you're incarcerated. It's a punishment. There's a whole bunch of psychological factors to that. So does it not make sense that we as a human species needs to belong and does not want isolation or to be alone? And so when you start to peel away the layers, and this is it really is like an onion, you peel away the layers of this and you look at, well, that makes sense then, right? So what's a girl to do? I don't want to be talked about, but I want to get my mission out. What I had to work on was not that I don't want to be talked about, because that was the surface layer. What I really needed to work on was my need to belong, right? And so then I started to realize that I do belong, but not necessarily belong in communities, like, right, of other people, but I belong in my own home, like in my own heart, in my connection to divine source energy. I cannot not belong when I have a connection to God, right? And so I was able to see that. And then when I experience not belonging to a group, because that will happen, I move in and out of communities just like you do. And sometimes the communities welcome me, and sometimes they're like, they don't want me afterwards. I'm sure every other person who's listening to this has also had that experience. Then it's not that I go, oh, that doesn't hurt, because that's bullshit. Yeah, that does hurt. It does hurt when I'm, not feeling welcomed, or realize that I've maybe outgrown the tribe, right? That happens too. Then I go back to, but who am I meant to belong with? Where am I meant to belong? And knowing that every opportunity that I have with community is, there will be another community for me, right? Even in leading a community, right? It's, it's leading the community when people come and go, because people come and go. It affects me. Like I am 100% affected when my community flows in and out. And I would love to say to you, oh, it doesn't bother me when people leave the morning group. It doesn't bother me in the sense of, bothers me, but I certainly feel it. Like that's, I mean, I do. And and knowing that you all might not be here till the day that I, pass on, right? So, but I'm aware of that, and then I have tools in my tool belt to be able to work through the pain, the physical, emotional pain that I feel. And I used to judge myself for feeling pain, and I went, you know what, it's a part of who I am. And as I started to explore human design, it actually is a part of who I am. It's in my human design, actually, to have that connection and that deep connection. And part of having a neurodivergent brain, we get attached to people, and we over, more so than other people who don't have a neurodivergent brain. So those two pieces of awareness help me facilitate the emotions that I feel as people move on, right? So for me, and I don't think I'm alone in all of the things that was happening, I started to see more so that I had a fear of success more so than a fear of failure. And that it was really tied to, and my challenges and obstacles was tied to this fear as I was unpeeling all the layers. And at a deeper level, even the belonging piece, but even at a deeper level, I was trying to control what others thought of me. I wanted to control other people's thoughts, which is, right, not an easy thing to do, because then it becomes manipulation, which is the dark side of impact and influence. And we have both, right? We don't just, because we're created as a whole, we don't just have one side of this, we also have the other side of this. And so it's those pieces, and once in a while that comes out, the manipulation can come out, and it's not even necessarily intentional, but when you become aware of how that works, and then you'll see it in different pieces, right? So if you're choosing to accept, I guess the challenge is what I'm hearing, is to really spend some time today, if you can, or in the next couple of days, to go through this exercise, right? Because there's so much opportunity of gold for you. And the affirmation that you could use if you're using affirmations is, I take back my authority. It's a statement, right? I am my own authority would be an I am statement. And then, I'm so happy and grateful now that I've taken back my authority. I'm so happy and grateful now that I am my own authority. And remember that when you're doing your I am statements and your gratitude statements, they don't necessarily have to make sense from an English level. Like it could be improper terms of the word. It's the feeling and the emotion that you have within you, and you'll start to see the places and spaces where you're allowing, because of conditioning, where other people have an authority over you, where other people's opinions matter, right? And the consequence of doing the work is that you truly move to a place where you're in awareness of, ooh, that person's opinion of me matters, right? It's like I went to post something the other day, and then I phoned my mom and said, I'm posting something that might trigger you and dad, so don't look. I just don't look. And she laughed and she said, I just so much appreciate when you tell me that. She says, because I'm never sure when you're saying things like what if you, she's like she said, I know you're really kind, so I know you're not doing to dig at your dad and I, and you have something to share. She said, so I do really appreciate it. So then I won't read it. I'll just scroll by it, right? Because there's things that I'm starting to share that my mom and dad are unaware of my spiritual journey that I've been on, because I'm not in contact with my parents a lot, right? Although my mom does like all my posts, kind of funny, right? um, and then through this exercise, you'll have an opportunity to see for yourself if there's more of a fear of failure that you have, or is it a fear of success? And then you have an opportunity, I guess the last little bit of information is then you have the opportunity to tap into what does success mean for you, and what does failure mean for you? What are your definitions, right? Because again, we'll go back to one of my favorite statements ever is, the problem is never the problem. The problem is what I think the problem is. The problem is the meaning that I give the problem. That has saved my bacon, in the sense of saved me from feeling and reacting to things that I used to react to, right? And moves me into a space where I can respond to something, because I can realize, oh yeah, this is not, problem isn't the problem, right? It's the meaning that I'm giving it. And it is such a valuable tool for you to have at your fingertips. Awesome. I don't think there's anything else from my perspective. Just going to tap in. Hang on, one more. The reminder that, so we have our subconscious or our unconscious, and then we have our conscious thoughts. And we only have control over our conscious thoughts, which can influence after a while your outcome. But just the reminder that your unconscious thoughts, your subconscious thoughts, like where your beliefs and emotions lie, if unchecked, will drive the bus. If unchecked, will drive the bus. So this is where awareness is important, right? On a regular basis. I think that's it. Yeah, that was it. We stop.